So we have some interesting NVIDIA RTX 50 series news, and this is going to come down to the 5090 and the 5080. So are you curious when something like the 5090 is going to come out? We've heard rumors that it's going to be like really powerful. And usually you could say, oh, you have to take rumors with a grain of salt, etc. You know, stuff never pans out the way that it should. But take a look at the 4090. Remember when that came out? Like, I think people were shocked at how much more powerful that was than the 3090. In that case, the rumors were pretty much right on point, if not even maybe less than what the 4090 ended up being. Remember, when you look at a 4090 graph, it was like pretty ridiculous. It was like way over anything else that the 3090 had done or any GPU up to that point. So then that's why when we say the 5090 might be really powerful, and some places, you know, they speculate 50 to 70% more powerful than a 4090. I mean, that's like 4K, like completely maxed out with ray tracing at really high frame rates. The 4090 already does 4K in like very competent numbers. That's, I don't know, 8K gaming. I don't even know why you would need such a powerful GPU. You would just have to up the resolution, because I don't even think games would be able to take advantage unless you do a really high refresh rate monitor. But 240 hertz is like the top of 4K right now. So then you would have to maybe do that resolution upscaling to like 8K or something and just get a much crispier image. But anyway, that's the 5090. And now let's hear a word from our sponsor, VIP-CDKdeals.com, a Windows Pro CD key. Add to cart, you put in code CC20. This will also work on Windows 11. You want to go into your settings in Windows, change and adjust your CD key, click activate, and now let's go back to the video. So recently, we thought the 5090 was going to be the first GPU released in 2024 at the end of the year, and then the rumor was everything else was going to come in 2025, which I guess it's fine. The current generation is still really good, and pricing is keeping a lot of gamers away from buying products now that haven't already bought the GPUs during the last, last 2 years or so. So that was the initial rumor. A well-known leaker kind of like rebutted that rumor, and he said that no, the 5090 is not coming first. We're going to see the RTX 5080 released first in 2024, and then the 5090 and everything else after, presumably maybe 2025. Really early to know. I don't even think NVIDIA may know the exact dates, but that's what we're seeing now. So would that make any sense? Is there a precedent for it? Well, yes, there is. I mean, if you look at the RTX 4090, that came first in 2022. And then, the following month, we had the RTX 4080. So they released their most powerful product, and then they went to the second most powerful. Now, that makes some sense because the 4090, like we saw with the early reviews, was very impressive, and it set the stage of NVIDIA being absolutely dominant, and nobody could say anything about its performance. Even though it's, an expensive GPU, it only came in at $100 more than a 3090, but the performance was significantly faster. So if you can forgive the high starting price, like the performance kind of made it worth it. And I think a lot of people agree. And that's why the 4090 sold so well. So not too many qualms about that one. But then the 4080 was kind of a little bit of a disaster. At $1199, it was way too expensive, only 16 gigabytes of VRAM, when AMD, like the 7900 XT, which was a lot cheaper, had 20 gigabytes of VRAM. So you see NVIDIA was falling behind there. And while the 4080, performed well enough, there's nothing wrong with that GPU. And you can argue 16 gigabytes of VRAM is kind of the sweet spot for most games. Even at 4K, it'll do okay. There are cases you can go up to 24 gigabytes, like the 4090, for example, at high resolutions, high textures, ray tracing. But those are specific scenarios. In general, you could say the 4080 is a good GPU. What it isn't is a good value, and nobody really wanted to buy it at $1199. And remember, some third-party and AIB models were as much as $1,500 or $1,600, basically the price of a 4090, something like the Asus Strix, with a little bit fancier cooler, even though it didn't perform any better really than like a Founders Edition at the base MSRP. So that was the story there. The 4080 really, didn't impress very much. But then things kind of changed a little bit. The 4080 Super Super went down in price to $999, and that's fine. That's not a terrible price for that GPU. That's probably where it should be. It did seem to sell fairly well. I mean, well enough, considering that it came pretty late into the GPU cycle, into the RTX 40 series. It was sold out for a while. We even had some scalpers, and it seemed to hold its value. Maybe NVIDIA didn't really release as many of them, so maybe it makes sense that for the RTX 50 series, they want to lead with a 5080, but not one at $1199. Presumably, we don't know the price yet, but what if it came in at $999? And it had some pretty crazy performance. I mean, even if it's only 16 gigabytes of VRAM again, but it's going to be the newer GDDR7. It's not going to be the 6X like we have now. So it's going to be faster VRAM, even if it is 16 gigabytes. Supposedly some rumors kind of paint it as being at least as powerful as a 4090, without considering the VRAM difference, but at least in terms of the performance, it should be at least as good, if not better, than a 4090. Because if the 5090 is 50 or 70% better than a 4090, then there's a little bit of room there for something like a 5080 to at least get very, very close to the 4090, if not maybe even beat it by some percentage points. And if it comes in at $999, it's basically like almost a half price 4090, which I think a lot of people would be fine with. So maybe just like NVIDIA led the way with a 4090 with performance in tow, saying here's the most powerful GPU, and it's the first one out the door, maybe they're going to change it up. Maybe they're going to lead with the 5080, which is already going to be powerful enough. They may say, oh, listen, this is going to be, more powerful than a 4090 and $999. So you're getting like a flagship GPU basically for under $1,000, and it has fast VRAM, everything, all the boxes kind of tick. And then because the 4080 didn't sell too well, maybe the 5080 at this lower price point and with this really impressive performance will then kind of recaptivate that sort of market that NVIDIA really had trouble with, the 80 series market. And then later on, or a little bit after 2025, or who knows exactly when, they can release the 5090, which we would expect to be absolutely incredible. Now, another interesting thing, I mean, you can see that the AI and data center GPUs has been something that's been really, really taking up all of really the high-end GPUs recently. Even in China, they would take certain GPUs like 4090s and put them in farms basically for data centers and AI. Even though obviously data center GPUs are preferred, the 4090 is powerful enough that it fits under. It even got banned from going into China because it's so powerful. But some of the models that they released, like the 4090D, were able to skirt right under that ban, and so people still use it. People still import 4090s for AI. So you can see NVIDIA maybe has more than enough customers and more than enough use cases for the 5090, so they don't have to necessarily rush it out. They can save some of that higher end silicon for AI and data centers, because it is, that powerful. It's almost kind of really getting close to that level. And then the 5080 will make gamers happy with the high performance, but a more reasonable high price. It's still a lot, $1,000 for a GPU, but at least it's not $1,200 or $1,600, and it's going to perform, basically as good as a 4090 now, we would speculate. So that would be, that would be a pretty decent move. So then NVIDIA would regain some of that mind share and market share for that 80 series GPU. Obviously, there's not too much competing aside from AMD. The 7900 XT and XTX, they have seen some sales and price drops, but who knows if AMD is going to release a competitor to like the 5080 and 5090. That's yet to be seen. We've seen, some possible murmurs that AMD may drop out of the high-end GPUs and let NVIDIA kind of take that and maybe just focus on the mid-range like the 7800 XT and GPUs like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what AMD does to counter NVIDIA, or at least to put some balance in the market, or else it's going to be NVIDIA completely dominating the market in general. We don't really know right now, but it's interesting if the 5080 does come first. Let's see what the price is and the performance. That's really going to dictate everything. All right, guys, let me know what you think down below. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.